I gave everything to my girlfriend, ignored my own boundaries, and even believed her excuses, but after lies about nights out, gaslit me, deleted videos, and tearful apologies, I'm left questioning if I've been the fool all along. I, 25 male, am, by nature, extremely shy and introverted. I've always been the type to keep to myself, never really socializing more than I have to, and I rarely put myself out there. So when I somehow ended up dating a 22-year-old coworker, it felt surreal. She's outgoing, full of energy, and very different from me, not just in personality, but in nationality too. To add another layer, we both live in a country that's neither of our home countries, so in a way, we're both outsiders trying to navigate our own paths here. When we were still in the talking stage, she casually mentioned that she liked clubbing. I immediately told her that it wasn't really my thing. Loud music, flashing lights, dancing with strangers, the whole scene makes me deeply uncomfortable. She said it wasn't an issue, that she could respect that. I believed her. Then we started officially dating. And literally the very next day after we became a couple, she asked to see my phone. To be honest, I had nothing to hide. I've never flirted with or even talked to other women outside of work small talk. I've always been a bit of a loner, and my phone history is about as boring as it gets. But something about her request felt wrong to me. Too soon. Too invasive. We had just started dating, and I felt like she didn't even trust me enough to give our relationship a chance to breathe. I said no, not because I was hiding something, but because I wanted to keep that boundary. But as time went on, I realized this wasn't a one-off thing. She had this jealous streak that came out in ways that felt extreme. For example, during break times at work, sometimes the only open seat would be next to a female coworker. I would sit there, eat my food quietly, maybe scroll my phone, and not even say a word to anyone. Still, she would later bring it up. Why were you sitting next to her? Or do you like her? I honestly couldn't believe it. There was no interaction happening at all. I was just sitting down where there was space. At first, it really bothered me. I felt accused of things I'd never do. But because I liked her so much, and maybe because I'm naturally avoidant of conflict, I decided to let it slide. I thought, okay, if sitting next to women makes her feel insecure, then fine. I'll just avoid it. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but I figured since I don't like interacting with people anyway, it wasn't a huge sacrifice. Still, a part of me wondered, should I really have to bend this much for someone else's insecurity? Despite this jealousy issue, I have to admit, she treated me well in many other ways. She could be sweet, caring, affectionate, and I was falling for her. I told myself that every relationship has challenges, and maybe this was just one we could work through. But then something happened that really tested me. One day, she casually mentioned she wanted to go clubbing in a nearby city with a female friend of hers, someone I'd never met. My stomach immediately tightened. Given how jealous she was of me just sitting next to women at work, the idea of her going clubbing, dancing in close quarters with drunk strangers, surrounded by men whose main goal is to hook up, felt incredibly hypocritical. I told her as much. I said I wasn't comfortable with it. And honestly, I don't think my discomfort was that unreasonable. To me, clubbing isn't just about dancing. It's an environment built around alcohol, sexual energy, and blurred boundaries. If I respected her enough not to do things that might make her feel insecure, why should she get a free pass to do the exact opposite? She brushed it off at first, saying it was just innocent fun. But I tried to explain it to her in a way she might understand. In my home country, there are places that are basically a mix between a bar and a brothel. Guys go there to drink, hang out, and sometimes pay for services. I asked her, would you be okay with me going to one of those places, just to drink a beer with friends and not do anything? She didn't like that comparison, but to me, it felt similar. The environment itself is loaded with temptation and intent. We ended up having a small argument about it. She insisted that clubbing wasn't a big deal, and I insisted that if she wanted that kind of freedom, she needed to rethink how she treated me for things that were way more innocent. I told her flat out, if you want to go, fine. But then you can't keep controlling me about where I sit or who I'm around. You can't have double standards. In the end, she decided not to go. She said she understood where I was coming from and that she didn't want to jeopardize what we had. Part of me was relieved. But another part of me couldn't shake the thought. If I hadn't pushed back, would she have gone anyway? A while later, the phone issue came back up again. She asked to see my phone, and honestly, by that point, I was already mentally exhausted. Work had been stressful, I had been carrying a lot, and I just didn't have the energy to fight with her. So this time, I handed it over without much resistance. And in return, she gave me hers. I wasn't really interested in digging through her conversations. I'm not the type who enjoys snooping. But there was one thing that had been nagging at the back of my mind. A guy who had reacted with a love reaction to one of her Facebook photos. The only two people who had done that were him and me. Naturally, I was curious. So I scrolled through his profile a little, and almost immediately I saw a post from him that said something along the lines of, "Single again." What struck me was that she had reacted to it with a heart. Not a like, not a laugh, a heart. I felt this weird, sinking feeling in my chest. Why would my girlfriend react with a heart to some guy's post about being single again? So I confronted her. Her explanation? She said the guy was her friend's boyfriend. That confused me even more. I asked her, "Okay, so why the hell is your friend's boyfriend posting about being single? And why are you reacting to it with a fucking heart?" She brushed it off. She told me that they had a fight, that it was just one of those moments where people post stupid dramatic things online when they're angry, and that they'd be fine again soon. And as for her heart reaction, she said it was just a joke, that she didn't mean anything by it. I wanted to believe her, but the whole thing made no sense to me. I couldn't picture a scenario where that explanation truly added up. But then I thought, okay, maybe it's a cultural thing. We come from different countries, different senses of humor, different ways of communicating online. Maybe in her culture, reacting to something like that could be interpreted differently. So, I let it slide. Or, at least, I pretended to. To try to prove her point and ease my doubts, she even blocked the guy. She made it clear that she didn't want me to feel threatened. And for the moment, I convinced myself that maybe she was right, maybe I was just overthinking. Fast forward a couple of months. I had already bought plane tickets back to my home country long before we even started dating, so when the trip came around, I went. She stayed behind. The long distance wasn't going to be for too long, just a holiday trip, and I thought it would be fine. At first, things were good. We video called almost every day, sometimes multiple times. Seeing her face on the screen gave me comfort. I missed her, but those calls reassured me that we were still connected. Then one Saturday, things felt off. That evening, when I called her, she told me she didn't want to talk. Instead, she said she just wanted to listen to music until she fell asleep. It was only 9 p.m. at the time. She usually never went to bed before 11. Immediately, a small red flag went up in my head. What made it worse was that she was wearing makeup. That caught me completely off guard because in all the time I had known her, this was literally the first time I had ever seen her wear makeup. I asked her why, and she said it was because she had gone to the market with her friends earlier. The explanation didn't sit right with me. Who puts on makeup to go to the market? Especially since she had never done it before, not once. My mind started racing with possibilities I didn't want to think about. The timing, the makeup, the early bedtime, it all felt suspicious. But then the other part of me kicked in. The part that didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid boyfriend who accuses his partner of cheating every time something looks a little strange. I didn't want to ruin things between us by being overly jealous. I reminded myself that I had already been insecure about things before, and I told myself it'd be crazy to confront her over this. I remember that morning vividly, and not in a good way. I had messaged her around the time I knew she usually woke up. She was an early riser, so it wasn't unusual for her to be online, or at least answer with a sleepy emoji. But nothing came back. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was still asleep. Maybe her phone had died. That was the rational side of my brain talking, the side still trying to protect me from spiraling. A couple of hours went by, and still nothing. I messaged again. No reply. By now, that uneasy feeling in my chest was starting to spread. Another couple of hours later, I called. No answer. That's when my patience broke. I started sending more frustrated, sharper messages. Where are you? Why aren't you replying? Why are you ignoring me? I could feel myself losing it, but the silence was worse than any fight we could have had. Finally, she called me back. I answered immediately, my heart racing. She was on a train sitting next to another girl and introduced her as her cousin. She smiled politely and waved at me through the camera. But when my girlfriend introduced me as her boyfriend, I swear I caught it. Just for a split second. A flicker of surprise on her cousin's face. Like she hadn't expected to hear that word. That moment burned itself into my brain. It was small, but it screamed at me louder than anything. I asked her directly, where was she? Where had she been? She hesitated, then admitted she had gone to a bar with her cousin the night before and that she'd stayed over at her cousin's place. My chest tightened immediately. The lies didn't even surprise me anymore. They just drained me. We fought. Of course we fought. I asked her why she had to hide it, why she always seemed to choose doing the very thing she knew would hurt me. She apologized, swore she only kept it from me because she knew I wouldn't like it. She promised she hadn't hooked up with anyone, hadn't even talked to anyone. I wanted to believe her, but the damage was already done. Trust, once cracked, doesn't just glue itself back together. Still, I tried to swallow it. I told myself maybe I was being paranoid, maybe it was insecurity. I tried to move on, but I never forgot. Fast forward a couple months later, I was back from my trip, and we were still playing this game of pretending things were okay. But in the back of my mind, that night she swore was just a bar night gnawed at me. I couldn't shake it. Then came the turning point. One evening, she once again wanted to see my phone. By this time, I had nothing to hide, I never did, so I handed it over without thinking twice. But this time, I made it clear. I wanted to see hers too. Her whole demeanor shifted. Suddenly, she was hesitant. She stalled, fumbling with her phone, her eyes darting nervously. I could see her deleting things, swiping, clearing out stuff in a panic. I asked her what she was deleting, and she brushed it off. Just silly photos of me. Nothing serious. They're embarrassing. I don't want anyone to see them. I didn't believe her for a second. Eventually, she handed it to me, but the damage was done. I went straight to the gallery, scrolling to the night she had claimed was just a quiet bar outing. And there it was. Videos. Bright lights. Music blasting. Crowds dancing. A full-blown club. My stomach dropped. When I showed her, she laughed. Not a normal laugh. A desperate, almost hysterical laugh. "But you already knew I went," she said, as if that excused anything. I stared at her, trying to process what she just said. "No. You told me you went to a bar, not a club." Her defense? But this is a bar. I felt myself go cold. Did she really think I was that stupid? That I wouldn't recognize the place? I knew that club. I had been there before, 2 years ago, dragged along by a friend who didn't want to go alone. It was one of the most famous clubs in that city. I looked her straight in the eyes. "This isn't a bar. This is club name. Don't lie to me." That's when the walls finally crumbled. The excuses stopped, and the tears started. She broke down, crying, saying she only lied because she knew I didn't want her to go. That she hadn't wanted to upset me. That it was her cousin who insisted, and she just didn't want to let her cousin go alone. At that point, I couldn't even muster anger. Just disbelief. Exhaustion. I'd heard it all before, every excuse, every twist of the truth. And it was always the same story. She made a choice, lied about it, then justified it later when she got caught. I told her straight, I was done. I wanted to break up. She cried harder, grabbing onto me, begging, "I'm sorry, I know I made a mistake. Please forgive me." She even tried to add another layer to the story, saying that halfway through the night, one of our coworkers, someone I knew, had shown up and that they had spent the rest of the night together as a group. She even told me to ask them, to confirm she hadn't hooked up with anyone. But at that point, it wasn't about proof. It wasn't about whether she had kissed someone, danced with someone, or went home with someone. It was the lying. The endless cycle of cover-ups, half-truths, and backpedaling. And the worst part? She didn't seem sorry for doing it. She was only sorry she got caught. I told her again, more firmly this time. I was done. And this time I meant it. The tears didn't move me. The apologies didn't soften me. I just felt empty. Tired of the paranoia. Tired of being gaslit. Tired of second-guessing my own instincts and letting her rewrite reality every time she got cornered. Walking away wasn't easy. I still loved her, or at least the version of her I thought she was. But I finally accepted that love alone isn't enough when trust is gone. And with her, it was gone for good.